Removed is out of order.
No, you say I've removed that.
Is it the Sharia?
Oh.
Yes. It is working. The one behind me is working. Yes. Sergeant, just ensure that you engineer the correct temperature in the room for the comfort of Honorable Mule and others. Yes. Honorable Alice Wahome, welcome to the committee. This is a committee of parliament that is conducting confirmation hearings or vetting for the nominees to cabinet by His Excellency the President. And you are one of our colleagues who has been given the privilege. You are welcome to the committee. This is now your time. I will direct the clerk responsible to swear you in. And affirm you can take the Bible or the Quran as the case may be.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, the chairman to the committee. I, Alice Mudhoni Wahome, do hereby swear to testify on all matters in question and tell this committee...
Alice, when you swear, you raise the Bible with your right hand.
All right. I, Alice Mudhoni Wahome, do swear to testify on all matters in question and tell this committee the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Honorable Alice, welcome once again. We are going to have an interactive session with you. Where members of this committee, as you are aware, we are set up under the Act to conduct hearings and find your suitability or otherwise in taking up the position that the President has offered you. We are chaired by the Speaker, yours truly here, Moses Wetangula, and I'll invite members of the committee to introduce themselves for purposes of Hansard. I know that your colleagues, you know them, but the Hansard requirement needs that they introduce themselves, starting with the Deputy Speaker.
Good afternoon and congratulations, Honorable Wahome, on your nomination as Cabinet Secretary. I'm Gladys Boss, member for Wasingishu County and Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Thank you.
Kimani Shongwa, Kikuyu Member of Parliament.
Opio Wandai, Ugunja MP.
Junet Mohammed, Suna East.
Owen Baya, Kilifi North.
Robert Mbui, Kadhiani.
Rehab Mukami, County MP Nyeri.
Ferdinand Wanyonyi, Member of Parliament, Kwanza, Trans Nzoia County.
George Gitonga Murugara, Member, Tharaka, Tharaka Nithi.
David Kosing, Pokot South MP.
Abdul Rahim Daoud, North Imenti, Meru County MP.
Honorable Mishimboko, MP Likoni.
Nelson Arap Koech, MP Belgut.
Thank you, Chair. Caleb Wamisi, MP Saboti.
Dido Raso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, MP Balambala.
Emase Mary, MP Teso South.
Stephen Mulle, MP Matungulu.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
We also have our secretariat led by our clerk to the National Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Sarah Kyoko, the acting clerk of the National Assembly, and I'm accompanied by the Deputy Director, Legal Services, Mr. Michael Karuru, and other staff who are assisting the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Alice Wahome. Our next step is to get from you your documents as indicated in the invitation letter. If you have them as a bundle, you'll give to the clerk after I mention them. They'll check your copies that you leave with us against your originals, which you may be at liberty to take back after the meeting. You have your compliance with tax obligations from KRA?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, I do.
Use the microphone, please.
I do.
Clearance with the Higher Education Loans Board?
Yes, I do, Chair.
Clearance with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission?
Yes, I do.
Certificate of Good Conduct?
I have one.
From the DCI?
Yes, I have one.
Very good. Your national ID?
I do have the original with me.
Your academic certificates?
Yes, they are there, Chair.
Okay, that gracious lady will have them and compare your copies with the originals. Where there's a deficiency, she will report here and we will advise you.
The only deficiency is that I could not trace my original certificate, University of Nairobi, but I have a letter from the university dated October 12th certifying that degree.
I am also a witness that you went to the University of Nairobi.
Thank you,
are
Chair.
2 years behind me.
Yes, I thought it was 1 year.
1 year behind me.
Or thereabout.
And you duly graduated and practiced law with me in the corridors of the High Courts.
Thank you, Chair. I still hold the current practicing certificate and have put one here.
Excellent. I don't think any member has any issue with that. The next question to you, Honorable Alice. Are you a dual citizen of any country apart from being a Kenyan citizen?
I'm a Kenyan citizen, no other citizenship.
We will give you 10 minutes to introduce yourself. Who is Alice Wahome? What are you? What do you want from this committee? Under 10 minutes, the better.
Yes.
Thereafter, I'll ask you one or two other questions. Then we'll open it to the plenary.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Speaker, sir. I am still a member of Parliament as I appear before this committee, so I recognize you, Mr. Speaker, and the Deputy Speaker, the honorable members of the committee. My full names are Alice Muthoni Wahome. I am a daughter of a peasant, small-scale coffee farmer. My father died at age 100 years, and I hope I can reach that age, Mr. Speaker. Chairman, to this committee, I was born in a village called Muruka. I went to primary school just next door my home, which was a kilometer away, Karumu Primary School, with other boys and girls in the village. I walked to school. I came back to school, went without lunch when there was no lunch, and I finished my primary school there. And I joined Siakago Girls for my O-levels. We did O-levels, Form 1 to Form 4. I finished in 1974, and then joined. I finished in 1977 and joined A-levels for 2 years Bishop Gatimu Girls. It is from there, Gadu Girls, that I was called to Nairobi University as a law student. And I did my 3 years. After 3 years at Nairobi University, I graduated with a Bachelor of Laws degree, and then I joined law school for 1 year at Tudor Jackson, and thereafter, my first job was a state counsel at the office of the Attorney General, where I practiced for about 2 years. I left and joined Makecha and Company, the late Makecha and Company. From there, Mr. Chairman, I set up AM Wahome and Company Advocates. After finishing, I think I did work for until 2014, when I was joined by my daughter, who is a lawyer, as a partner. And I believe she's in this room, so that we formed Wahome and Akendi, where if I am approved by this committee, I'll be resigning. I have held my practicing certificate from 1985 to date. It's still valid for practice, but I'm aware, acutely aware, that if I'm approved, I will not be able to practice. It is I would like to say something about my young age. I have worked like any other village girl. I have milked. I know how to milk. I know how to cut grass. I have cooked for my brothers, as was expected, even though some of them were older than me. I didn't understand why, but I know I did those jobs. I have followed my mother to the garden, to the shamba, up and down, and she was one of my driving forces or factors, because she was a hard worker. My father was a polygamous man. We are 48 siblings in my home, and
very hard-working man.
Something I don't wish most men or many men to do, but and especially with the current economic times, I know that it is really a situation that I looked forward to actually making an improvement in my life. In terms of my upbringing, I could say within the village, I was one of the few privileged girls, because my mother was very keen to ensure that I go to school. My father educated all of us through his coffee farm, about 9 acres of coffee. I was determined from that age to make a difference as a girl. I looked forward to leaving the village and joining other working people. And as I sit here looking forward for approval, and I hope that I will be approved, I would want to encourage other girls from the village going to school even without shoes today, maybe no water in their homes, no running tap, no food sometimes, but that there is a hope and there is a future, and they can be able to work and reach higher heights than what is their situation. I think, Chairman, I'm saying that I would also want to let women know that there are many opportunities. If women understood, despite the barriers, patriarchal barriers, cultural barriers, economic barriers, society barriers, that there is still a lot of opportunities unexploited, and I am looking forward to exploit the current opportunity if I am approved. Chairman, at this stage, allow me to say thank you to His Excellency the President for finding it fit. It's really one opportunity in a lifetime for a woman who has come from where I have come from. I say that because the vulnerabilities of a growing girl, the vulnerabilities are very huge. Escaping pregnancy at primary level, escaping pregnancy and other hazards that face even boys and girls to reach this University of Nairobi at that time and still today was the university is not a mean achievement. And I know that it is our pride to see more women and girls achieve even at university level. I know, Mr. Chairman, that I actually have a husband. I married while at the university. I think I was a bit too fast. And I'm grateful because the father of my children, is still my husband today, which is also not a very small achievement. And especially, it's a major deal to be able to live with a husband, the same man, for, I think now 39 years. I still love my family. I have 4 adult children, 2 lawyers. One is almost finishing his law school. The other one is my partner. I have a doctor in the family, and I have a media personality in the family. Of course, they are all adults with their own families. Maybe that is sufficient to say, but I also want to let the girls in Siakago girls know that at the time I went to school in Siakago girls, in Embu, Bere, those days there was no water. We had to go to fetch water in the streams. And I know that today the life there may be different, but I hope to be able to visit them if I'm approved as the Minister for Water, to find out whether they have running water in the bathrooms, because we did not have running water. We used to fetch water in our karais, and then we would wash outside, and the sisters would, of course, during darkness, we would ensure that you wake up very early, because the bathrooms were also not enough. It was a hard life, but it was good. In terms of the village life, we must be able to ensure that our schools have the adequate facilities. I think maybe that is enough. I, of course, have been elected twice. The 3rd time this particular term. Very grateful to the people of Kandara. It is also a very unique achievement for a woman in a patriarchal society to be elected as a member of parliament for 3 terms. There are mixed feelings for Kandara people. I want to confirm to them I will not be very far away, despite maybe the duties that I may get away from the constituency. But I want to assure them that I will keep in touch with them, albeit that they may have to have another member of parliament. Indeed, campaigns are very, very hot there now, even before I tender my resignation, Chairman. But I want to assure them that I'm grateful, forever grateful. I was the first woman in Murang'a County to be elected in a constituency. After me, 2 other women have been elected. We lost one, but we still hope to get another or 2 other members. And therefore, that is a place and space I'm very proud to speak about. Kandara constituency is very progressive.
Thank you, Alice. That is like the story of all of us. Well done. I'll ask you 1 or 2 other questions. Have you ever been dismissed from office for any conflict between personal interest and public or official interest?
I have not been dismissed, Chairman.
From any office?
In any office or from any office.
With that rich history and background, long practice and so on, what is your financial net worth?
The gross is about 392 or thereabout, 392 million shillings.
Mm-hmm. And what are your current and anticipated sources of income?
Maybe I could say the net. The net is 218 million shillings. The others are debt, yes. My net worth is 218 million. And this is value of properties between myself and my husband. Some of them.
Those are family assets.
They are family assets.
What are your current and anticipated sources of income?
Until September, I have earned a salary from Parliament, and I have been in and off practicing a bit very, very low, low key, because of course as a member of Parliament you have very little time in your hands. I get about an allowance, fuel allowance of about 100,000 from these properties. Some of them are in my name. I get about 500,000 shillings a month. At the moment, they do not have tenants since COVID, and therefore I have no income coming from that end. I'm relying on the little 100,000 and my salary from MP, of course. Yes.
Great. Now I will open up to the members to ask you questions on your docket. And the structure of our engagement is robust but respectful. We encourage you, being a veteran parliamentarian, that all questions are through the chair, all answers are through the chair. Resist any attempt to engage directly with any member of the committee, because that will not be helpful. I'll now give the first opportunity to the majority leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Alice, you've been very passionate, and I could tell you're very passionate on the girl child issues. And now that you mentioned Siakago girls and how you went there and there was no water, I'm sure you are also certain that many parts of Siakago today still don't have water, and so are very many other parts of Kenya. His Excellency the President, in his address to the nation, to Parliament, did indicate that there are plans by the ministry, and I know you are here to report to the ministry, but I would really want to hear your thoughts on the question of the water purchase agreements under the PPP model. And being a lawyer, I'm certain you would be able to interrogate such agreements. But of concern to me would be the cost. Because as you have said, water is critical, water is life. And if that commodity becomes very costly, either to government or to the people, then it also becomes out of reach. What measures do you plan to institute in case you are approved to ensure these water purchase agreements don't end up in PPP arrangements that are extremely expensive, either to the exchequer or the end product being very expensive to the ordinary Kenyan who is yet to access water?
Yes.
One first.
We're doing 4 batches, one day.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Honorable Wahome, some Kenyans have accused you of having a volatile temperament. In other words, of having a short fuse, that you lose your temper so quickly. Okay. Some Kenyans accuse you of that. They may be wrong or they may be right. A case in point is the issue of 27th October 2017, when you were captured on camera roughing up and assaulting an IBC official by the name Martin Malonza over some disagreement on the filling of some forms, electoral forms, at Ngalaria Girls High School in Kandara. I'm sure you'll recall that incident. From where you sit, how would you take this act, considering the requirements, the stringent requirements of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and especially Article 73, Sub-Article 1, which provides that authority assigned to a state officer and by then you were a state officer, because you were an MP, that authority assigned to a state officer is a public trust to be exercised in a manner that, among other things, demonstrates respect for the people and brings honor to the nation and dignity to the office. 2, there is a matter, that is the succession course number 527 of 1981, if you may remember, where Ms. Alice Muthoni Wahome, I'm not sure if it is you, will confirm, together with other 3 advocates, were accused of misappropriating Kenya shillings 284 million, money that came from the estate of Mbiu Koinange. And this is captured in a judgment that was delivered by Justice Agri Muchelule, then judge of the High Court, on the 7th May 2020. What do you have to say about this matter? And how does it place you within the context of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and particularly Chapter 6 of the Constitution, as you plead with us to approve your nomination to this very high office? Thank you.
I'll give to the Deputy Speaker.
Again, Honorable Wahome, congratulations. As a woman, I'm immensely proud of your getting this far. As you know,
she has not said the same to any man.
Yes.
With a light touch, she has not said
practicing
the same to any man.
Yeah. It's called positive discrimination. I see that part of your docket will deal with sanitation. And as you know, 73% of the plastic waste generated in Kenya remains uncollected and unrecycled, which is something that can produce energy for the cities around Nairobi. How do you plan to make a change to this tide and ensure that recycling and proper sanitation does, in fact, become a thing of the order of the day? Thank you.
Yes, Junet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chair, I wanted to ask the nominee that the docket that she has been nominated for is a docket that requires services all over the country. Water is essential and water is required all over the country. So I wanted to ask her, the nominee, how well does she know Kenya outside Kandara and outside Siakago Girls High School? What is her grasp of the country? Does she know outside Kandara how the country looks like? The second question I wanted to ask, and my last one, is there is a matter that came up in 2016, I think I was in Parliament, when Justice Philomena Mwilu was being vetted. And the nominee raised an issue and said that she had taken a bribe of 3 million shillings on a matter that she has filed in court. And she even wrote a letter to the EACC claiming that she is ready to present a proof. What is her position on that matter? Does she still stand on those grounds that that matter was and it is as she said at that moment in time? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You may answer those 4 before we get another batch of 4.
Thank you. I will start chronologically the way they came.
Yes.
Kimani Ichung'wa, you want to know how we shall deal with the hire purchase agreements for purposes of ensuring that we come up with, infrastructure. How shall that anchor or sit with the consumers and maybe the water development agencies? The cost aspect of that, how shall we regulate? First, we do have WASREB, that is the main body that deals with the water regulation in terms of costing. But if you recall that on the State of the Nation address, the President indicated that he would be willing to commit the country to the tune of 500 billion for water resources development. I would, if I am approved, be supporting that, and I hope that it is something that Parliament will be able to attend to and support. At the moment, we are having a budget of 24 billion shillings and from the GOK, and then another 54 billion shillings, totaling to about 78 billion. The money that we have, the 54 is from partners, World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank. So if we are going to raise 500 billion shillings between now and Vision 2030, we will need to partner with the private developers. The concern of Kenyans is understandable because they are wondering, are we selling a basic right or leaving it to the exploitation of commercial or private individuals or companies? The purchase agreement, water purchase agreement, will be able, in my view, working with the Office of the Attorney General, stakeholders, the public in public participation, be able to come up with the proper frameworks that will ensure that Kenyans are not exposed. Currently, when the government develops water, when the ministry engages the water development works agencies, then they are, of course, the water service providers. The regulation in place, the strategy and policy in place ensures that the element of cost is under control, regulated, and I know there are cases where it may not be properly regulated, and that is part of the reforms that we are working on. For me, it is possible. We must not see public-private partnerships as commercializing the water. We must see that as a need to develop the infrastructure, the way you would invest on a highway, on a road, and then engage the agency for purposes of then ensuring water is distributed to the consumer at a controlled and regulated space and pace. And I think I have answered that question. I'm a practicing advocate. I've held my certificate since 1985. To date, I have a practicing certificate. Anybody who has taken clients' money may not be very lucky to have a practicing certificate for the period that I have had. The complaint you allude to occurred or was filed in 2012. The DCI has had that file, and it only becomes live when I'm about to go to elections, 2013, 2017, and 2022. You will find it being brought up even in the media, but finally, the DPP had the opportunity with the DCI to look at the matter. It is 3 advocates plus myself, and the Office of the Director has directed that there is no criminal liability in the matter. I don't want to go into deeper details, but any advocate who is handling an estate matter or estate funds has a duty and responsibility to file an statement of account in court. What the court or the complainant would do is to demand for an account, because we did account for all the monies that we received, and I do not owe, neither do my colleagues, the other 3 colleagues, including the late Munari. I believe that is the answer. We have not been prosecuted, we have not been charged, and I do not see any charge coming because it was pure malice or a party that did not want to pay fees. Let me remind you that an advocate has a lien over any money that they hold. They are entitled to charge their fees directly and render an account to the client. If a client is not satisfied, they can ask the court to look at the bill, do taxation, meaning the bill will be assessed by a deputy registrar on behalf of the parties. And if they need further recourse, the Law Society has a complaints commission. That matter has never gone to the complaints commission. I believe it was the debtor, if maybe not by the client, but advocates that felt maybe it was a good brief and they could take over from us. Let me go to the question of, I think you had another. You were asking in terms of public trust. I believe I will be able to hold the office with honor. I have not been taken to any court of law. And even assuming I was taken to a court of law, maybe there would be dishonor if I'm found guilty. Assault, allegations of assault in the 2017 elections, I want to say that that matter was also investigated. No return was made in terms of any charges. I have not been charged. There was an altercation. I do not recall. You would not say what happened was assault against the returning officer. We had a tussle. It's regrettable, I would say so, but we had a tussle. The background of that was an issue of accounting in terms of votes given wrongly, posted wrongly. We had a returning officer who did not want to answer. It did not need to end where it ended. And that is something I'm sure even himself, myself, we regret. We could have solved it a little better and tidier. Grades Shorey is asking me about recycling. How do we deal with sanitation? These are matters that, the ministry is involved with the development of water, resources, sanitation, and irrigation. In terms of sanitation, per year, we are funding all necessary projects to the tune of only about, including donor money, about 31 billion shillings. The money is not enough to do what we would want to do. This is an area that has recently, because of the need to improve the environment, has received a lot of interest, and I believe partners will come in to assist, while the government must also commit more funding, and Parliament is a key player in that. I think it is an area that we would work for. We do have a strategy in place and policy. So what is remaining is just to implement and move forward. I am reminded that the President has said he would want to take up the cleaning of the Nairobi River in a very serious manner as soon as possible as part of ensuring that our sanitation is sorted. Junet Mohammed, Mheshimiwa Junet Mohammed, you are asking whether, other than Kandara, I know any other part of the country. I think in the ministry, I do not need to know any part of the country to be able to implement the policies that the ministry has developed. We have policy in place, we have strategy, reforms are in place, we have both the statutory and regulatory mechanisms, and we have very serious technical support teams in the ministry where there may be deficit or need to add, to improve, to train further. We shall do so that the designs, a lot of designs, including national master policy. I just need to sit on my desk and be taken through the national water policy and the national master plan for water. And then, therefore, I'll be able to find your constituency where it is or any other.
But is it true that you don't know anywhere else apart from Kandara?
I would be happy to go. Of course.
That was his question.
Mr. Chairman, to answer the Honorable Junet, I have traveled in all the counties in this country, both at my own free time and also during the very extensive campaigns that we did, including Junet Mohammed. I'm sure he has traveled. Mheshimiwa, I'll be able to find my way around, definitely.
Thank you. We'll take the next batch. Junet says you have not answered his other question. Which? There?
If I'm allowed, Chairman, I would like to leave that question because the Honorable Judge is now serving as a deputy CJ in the country. I had raised the matter before Justice and Legal Affairs Committee before she was vetted. She was vetted and went through the process of vetting. There is no need, if I'm allowed, by the owner of the question and the Speaker, Chair, sir, not to answer any further or deal with the matter.
Preclude us from discussing judges at that level. I'll take the next batch of 4. The Honorable Owen Baya, the Honorable, wow, the Honorable Murugara, the Honorable Amisi and Naisula. You will have the next round.
Can I start, Speaker? All right. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and to Honorable Alice Wahome, our nominee for water, sanitation, and irrigation. There is a clear relationship, or actually a correlation, between lack of water and poverty. In the Africa Water Vision by 2025, that is, Africa should at least have water by 2025 everywhere, potable water by 2025, which is just 3 years from now. If you look at that document, it examines this relationship very clearly and puts African states on their toes to ensure that water. Looking at Kenya the way it is, I think we are very far away from achieving that. My question to you, Honorable Alice, is as CS of Water and Sanitation and Irrigation, how will you reconfigure this country to achieve this vision by 2025? And what is it that you'd want Parliament to do so that you can achieve this vision, not only for the country, but also for Africa? Secondly, if I put it within this supplementary, Mr. Speaker, there are places in this country, if they had water, they wouldn't be as poor as they are. The docket on irrigation is placed squarely to you. How will you bring all this together to ensure that irrigation plays a role, but also water is found at home so that we can curtail the poverty that we have in this country? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chair. To our nominee, our constitution, we heavily borrowed from advanced democracies, US, UK, Canada, some Scandinavian countries like Sweden. But the best practices are not borrowed. We see ministers in these countries, whenever they are faced with flaws or mistake, they resign. But in the history of our country, we've seen ministers saying that some of them that may be known to you, that they rather die than resign. We get a lot of challenges during our working, especially these high-profile positions. There is a lot of pressure. And somebody accused you of being temperamental. Are we going to see a change that whenever there is a flaw, to you, maybe in the course of your work, the pressure increases higher than normal, and your hand moves closer to somebody at a speed faster than lightning, are you going to resign? As flimsy, as petty as the offense is, but are we going to see more responsible minister this time round?
Next, Morogara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is to the nominee. Water is everything. In fact, they say water is life. And especially to poor rural folks in the poor areas of the country, the arid and semi-arid areas, which include my constituency, Tharaka Nithi County, the eastern region, Ukambani, the northeastern region and the northern parts of Kenya. We are now experiencing a drought. There is a hue and a cry in the country, not just on the part of food, but on the part of water, such that it has become a way of life that every 3-4 years there is a drought, and the cycle is repeated whereby we have no food, our livestock die, and the rivers that traverse those areas actually dry up. My question is, as a measure of extreme urgency, Dharura, what plans do you have to ensure that this problem in the rural areas, in the dry areas, semi-arid areas of the country, this problem is ameliorated such that it is not going to be a cycle. It may be a one-off, but not a cycle that is repeated every 3-4 years to the detriment of the citizens who live in those areas.
Thank you, Chair. To Honorable Alice, and I would really advise and recommend that you really visit every part of this country when you're in that docket, so that you can actually feel the whole issue of water and how some parts of this country, people are really suffering. And so I do empathize with Kenyans in various parts of the country that have not had a drop of rain for 2 years now, and there has been no water for domestic and animal use. The case of human suffering is in the increase, while loss of livelihood continue to characterize life in the arid and semi-arid areas. And this is a matter of now, urgent. What urgent interventions and reforms will you put in place as a cushion to the devastating drought situation to see to it that households and school-going children have water?
Excellent. Next. Who was the... we've done the 4. Yes, Alice? You can answer those 4. Then we take another batch.
The first question was regarding my temperament, whether I will resign, or maybe he means whether I will fight with people I'm not happy with in terms of the way they are working. I'm not exactly a young person. I have the advantage of working now maybe for the last 40 years. And I do not recall any other incidents. You will also maybe want to know, and I want to put it on record, that I have been a politician for 20 years. Although I have served 2 terms and this now 3rd term. And I have not been involved in any other fight, altercation, except this that you seem to pick, honorable members. And I'm sure there are cases that can be very bad. I do not think I am a violent person. I am able to manage my tempers.
Honorable Chairperson,
Honorable Chair, I'm able to manage my tempers.
Alice.
Yes.
The David speak.
I have a slight interjection just to my colleagues, and I'm requesting the help of the chairperson. that we do, it would be nice not to have the questions being subjective, because when the question is asked in a manner that is subjective and amounts to casting aspersions and passing judgment without giving the candidate an opportunity to elaborate, then it doesn't look good. I think you can phrase your question, Honorable Amisi, to say, could you elaborate on the following incidences with a view of assuring the panel that you have the requisite integrity standards? That's a better way of asking. And I know this because I haven't seen that line of questioning with any of the other candidates.
Chair, maybe to make it even clearer.
I'm not opening any debate.
I believe I have answered. With your permission, Chair, I was going to move to the question of Honorable Murugara. I said I am able to manage my temper. Honorable Murugara wants to know. I'll come to your question, Honorable Baya. Honorable Murugara is asking a question related to climate change. The question of climate change is a big subject, locally and internationally. It is true we have water, seasons of water, periods of a lot of rainwater, and the next time, maybe after 5 years, drought, serious drought or moderate drought. Indeed, when I was going through notes and seeking information in this area, I was made to understand that every 30 years or so, we normally get very severe drought, then followed by El Nino type of floods. It means we have not been able to learn properly. We have not put in place measures before that will deal with the water harvesting question. I have gone through the documents. We do have now Irrigation Act. We have water conservation regulations, and regulatory mechanisms are in place. There is a lot of effort and research that has been put in place on how we can conserve rainwater, including coming up with, I think they call them dry valley dams, which means they will draw water from the rains. And indeed, when you walk, for example, when you go to water from Makueni, going those two valleys there, you can see big valleys that would be able to hold a lot of water. We have seen serious devastating floods in most of the eastern provinces, regions, the counties like the ones Mheshimiwa Resuda is referring to, her county, but that water after 3 months is not there. The ministry intends to partner with Parliament, provide funding with other partners, including private partners. I will go back to that question. Dams is a big solution. Development of dams, infrastructure is a big solution to the question of water, because dams can be able to hold rainwater, water flows from floods, and I have looked and seen that we have a long list of dams that are either 50% complete. A few have run into problems because of either the contractors have run into serious financial issues, but majority of dams are kind of halfway. I'm told that we need this, the whole of this, the master plans, the research, the designs are there. I'm told what we need is money. Between now and 2030, we need to raise 1.8 trillion shillings for both water resources development and sanitation by 2030. If we did that, we will possibly deal with 3/4 of our problems. So yes, I'm sure I'll be coming to the honorable members to be able to discuss how we can partner in the area of looking for more money. Honorable Baya is asking how, the question of hunger, poverty is related to no water, no agriculture, no growing food, no production. I agree with you. The docket of irrigation has received serious attention I can assure you that. And I think sometimes there is a lot of politics around irrigation. If you look at the irrigation schemes that are there, and I'm sure your region is one of those. The Gurana irrigation scheme, is about 95%. 5,000 acres of irrigation is now more or less complete, remaining another 5,000. The total is 10,000. And you remember the beginning was really visited with a lot of politics, but now it's underway to completion. So I want to think that for food security, to be able to be water secure, have food security, we need to irrigate. Again, we need to irrigate about 3.5 million acres. Currently, we have covered only about 800,000 acres, slightly less than 800,000 acres. So yes, by the time we reach 3.5 million acres, I think we shall be stable. But by 2030, the target, the question you asked me, by 2030, we are required to raise enough money to be able to irrigate about 1.2 million acres, between 1 million, 1.3 acres. That way we will be able to possibly talk about food security. Thank you. The SUDA visit, I should make sure I visit the entire country. That's a good invitation. How can I resist that one?
Thank you, Chair.
I'll join you in that.
Chair, through you.
So the drought questions, school-going children, you had me about.
Yes, thank you. And I believe the nominee touched on the long-term interventions as she was answering Honorable Murugara. But I need immediate, urgent, now.
The boreholes, the small ponds, the smaller dams, other than the mega dams, collecting rainwater, ensuring that we are able to, some areas, in fact, we even use dozer system, which is a very short-term and expensive mechanism. But boreholes, water harvesting, I have seen a lot of urgent, rapid response mechanisms or efforts by the ministry, and I'm sure as soon as I get office, with your approval, I'll be able to look at what is the immediate that we can do so that children are not running without water, but also that they can harvest water from schools where the ministry, with the help of agencies, they are delivering and distributing water tanks for purposes of storage. So yes, we do need a quick intervention water storage. Yes. I think I've answered all the questions.
Next batch.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, all of us, we understand that Kenya is a water-scarce country, and right now we're experiencing a lot of scarcity in terms of water, and the reason is being climate change, global warming, deforestation, and also destroying of our water towers. Recently, I've seen some leaders saying that they will allow some people to do cultivation or other farming in Mau Forest. So I'm asking our nominee, what is your take in terms of safeguarding our water towers or other water catchment areas to ensure that we have adequate rainfall? The other issue to the nominee is about what is your plan in terms of adequate supply of renewable fresh water for all Kenyans? I thank you.
Next.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Alice, my question, I really want you to be very specific. We are facing the worst drought in a decade. Currently, schools are being closed because there is not even water to cook food for the pupils or the students. And the rains maybe is unforeseen. the short rains might fail. So what we are asking is, as a stopgap of immediate attention, what is the ministry doing? We know you have not sat on that seat yet, but you should be able to get the information and give us feedback to that effect. On the same, your predecessor was also a lady. She was not seeing eye to eye with members of parliament. And yet water is life, and water is life. We represent the people. We are actually the actual representatives of the people of Kenya. So how are you likely now to work with Parliament and members of Parliament? Thank you, Chair.
Singh.
Thank you, Speaker and Chair of this committee. Number one, Speaker, is I didn't feel that the nominee answered the question by Honorable Ichung'wah properly. That was also my question in terms of water purchase agreement with the president. As of now, it's a policy. Maybe the nominee has not maybe acquainted herself with that policy and how it's going to happen. Maybe she would have said like that. It's a very fundamental policy, Speaker. I didn't get that very well from the nominee. But my question is, Chair, water is a devolved function. I want to hear from the nominee. What is it still doing, that function of water in national government? Is it that the county government cannot do those mega dams? Or is it that we cannot be able to give them the money? What is it that is amiss in our structure of devolved functions, Honorable Speaker, that national government is still insisting that, okay, maybe you people are small brothers, you cannot be able to do these mega projects we can be able to do as government. What is it that is missing? Finally, Speaker.
One question.
No. Finally, Speaker. Yes. It's not a question, but it's maybe a reminder that the nominee, if approved by this House, I want her to pay attention on the mega stall projects, Honorable Chair. One, Honorable Speaker, that has ever been done since God created the world. It's called Murun. You know that, Speaker. You know that's your home. We passed there. One, since God created the world. It's about 60% complete. I hope the nominee, if she gets this one, takes that as number one, because that's the only one, Chair, since God created the world. There's no other dam that has been done in West Pokot. Thank you, Chair. You see, it's a reminder only. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the nominee for water. We have a river which comes from Mount Kenya, going through Meru, going to Tharaka, and it is a major source of water for Mount Kenya East. And Mr. Speaker, through you, I would want to ask if the nominee goes through, because there are people who are irrigating with that water, and it's not just in Meru, in all the rivers in the country. They're doing hydroelectric plants, irrigating and everything, and people downstream cannot get the water. Mr. Speaker, I would want to ask the nominee, once she gets into office, if the House approves, what is she going to do with those areas? Because Meru is not known to be arid or semi-arid, but right now people are dying in Meru. Mr. Speaker, again, we hear about dams in each and every county. For the last 10 years, Mount Kenya East, we have talked about a dam, Kianjuri Dam, which was supposed to be done in Mount Kenya, which would go to Meru County together with the Tharaka-Nithi County. Mr. Speaker, we hear there are dams everywhere, but we are wondering, is the Tharaka-Nithi and Meru not in Kenya? That we do not get those dams. And we hear, the other day we heard in Kirinyaga 20 billion, we hear Aror and Kimwarer 50, 60 billion. Now we are wondering, where do we stand? So we would want to ask our nominee that if you are nominated to that office, you do a fair distribution of dams in all over the country and not just in a few areas.
Thank you. Answer. As you do so, I don't want us to repeat ourselves. The Honorable Posing asked you Ichungwa's question, and in my estimation, you had adequately answered it. You said you'll have public participation, you will have a look at each case in its own merit, and you'll consult the Attorney General to come up with proper, acceptable legal documents for the water purchase agreements. So you don't need to repeat it so that you answer other questions. You can answer him on Murunyi Dam and others.
Kopsing, and maybe I could then start with that so that I finish. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, even Chairman, for helping me out on that one. Water is devolved. That is your statement. What the national government is doing is water resource development infrastructure and managing that infrastructure so that by the time the counties are given water, then they are able themselves to distribute. They still have a big role. I guess it is not possible for the national government to deliver on delivery of water access to water to everybody without involving of the counties. But I'm sure you also agree the infrastructure, the management and development of that infrastructure is still a role of the national government. But it also does not stop the counties from coming up with their own irrigation and water projects. So I think I have answered that. If you look at the Constitution, it is not, there is nowhere it is stated that the national government will not work and develop the infrastructure. The dam you are talking about is 60%. Mheshimiwa, it's not just this particular dam that it is incomplete. There are very many dams. I've looked at the documents. It is possible that we have maybe more than 40 dams or thereabout that are incomplete. Some work is going on. Others are waiting for release of funds. You know where the country is at the moment. You know where this government found the economy. And without passing any blame or ducking the question in any event, is that I said we need 500 billion shillings to be able to be water secure. And that's why it is important that the country understands that private and public partnerships are not a way of commercializing or selling water. You know, of course, water is a fundamental human right. It's a basic right secured under Article 43. And therefore, if we do not also provide, then it means the responsibility by the national government is not yet discharged. So I want to assure you that we will look at this dam, if I'm approved, not just this dam or incomplete projects. The President has pronounced himself very clearly that he would want to move from the projects that are ongoing first to be able to complete those, allow funding of those before we can start as a government on new projects. So Mheshimiwa Honorable Daiwu may be one of the people who will be waiting so that we can first complete the incomplete projects. But I believe every county needs to be able to get these services. Honorable Mishi, it is true, yes, we are a water scarce country because of climate change, because of course of poor management of our water resources, the catchment areas, the water towers. Parliament, the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Water, all partners, stakeholders need to work together to restore the water towers, the catchment areas, and it is not possible to say that the minister will do that alone, including the fact that if there are people irrigating along rivers, you did not say which river, but maybe you can pass that over to me, yes. But I think the Ministry of Environment has a bigger role in this, but also the public has even a bigger responsibility not to destroy. We must work on conservation rather than destruction, and therefore those irrigating along the rivers, I think awareness creation also by members of Parliament is important. adequate renewable waters. I suppose in terms of conservation, restoring waters, maybe water wastage, of course, desalination, all these are methods of coming up with innovative ways of having more water. And I think I have seen policy documents and strategy documents. Indeed, there is a lot of reforms in this ministry. The documents are complete. What is remaining is implementation. Honorable Russell, I will take the chairman's advice that I may have addressed this question, because I said there are stopgap measures like delivering storage tanks, quick boreholes, small domestic ponds, or community ponds will be able to answer some of those questions. And they are under the rapid response programs. And there are those particular programs that are funded to respond to the situation as it is. I believe, Chairman, I was told about predecessor Sisri Karaoke. How will I work or partner with members of parliament? Will I be accessible? Yes, I will be accessible. I'm a member of parliament. I believe I may have a better understanding of the demands and the pressure on members of parliament. I may not have an answer for you even when you visit, but I may be able to hear you. Thank you.
We can take the last batch. Ferdinand Emase Mule. And, sorry, you are slightly behind me. Yes, in fact, let me start with you. Coach Ferdinand Emase Mule.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mine is slightly different. The plan, there's a plan to irrigate 1 million acres of land by the Kenya Kwanza administration. And looking at the dams that were somehow midway stopped from construction, I think because of, in my view, toxic politics of that time, Kimorer, Aror, Bosto, Londiani, Korosoin, amongst the few. Do you have plans to restart the dams again? And if yes, will we still have value for money, considering that some of these financiers have continued to pile interest on the loans within the time that they had been stopped? Thank you.
Ferdinand. Honorable.
Mr. Chairman, I think I want to ask analysts a very controversial issue. This is where we went wrong. Irrigation is supposed to be in agriculture. Somehow it was moved to water and the blue economy. We have projects like Kalana Kulalu, which actually is irrigation for the farms there. But somehow, irrigation and how to move to water. As far as I'm concerned, irrigation is supposed to irrigate crops in agriculture. Don't you think that we should be able to move the irrigation from yourself so that you can concentrate on water other than irrigating the farms?
Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. My question is on ongoing projects. Madam Nominee, water scarcity cuts across. It affects majority of the population, not only in the arid and semi-arid, but even in wet areas like Western Kenya, Busia, where I come from. There is water, yes, but we do not have deliberate structures to harvest that water. So it's not surprising to meet school children with the jerry cans going to look for water to be able to to survive in those schools. So my question is, what will be your priorities? Because government has initiated a number of water projects across the country, including Busia County. So how are you going to prioritize, noting the economic situation, the fact that we are cutting down on most of the budgets across the sectors? So what are you going to prioritize? Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. My question goes to the nominee, and I will, Speaker, encourage you, please allow us to frame the question which was asked by Honorable Ichung'wah, because I find it very important for simple reason, Mr. Speaker. We are putting about a budget of about 500 billion shillings on the PPP. And I didn't hear the nominee come out very clearly on the clear pillars. And probably for the doubt of Kenyans, what are we talking about? We are talking about 5 pillars. I can name them very quickly. The water scaling, whereby we are looking at the quality, quantity, rate, and the rate of adjustment. The sale capital, the purchase tripartite agreements, the terms of agreement, and the water usage in that particular project. Then my question comes, Mr. Speaker, as a nominee to this ministry with that fundamental, huge mandate being given to her, first and foremost, we need to understand, with the current economic situation in the country, will the ordinary Kenyan be able to raise funds for the purchase agreement we are talking about? I want to give an example. In Matungulu, we have the second highest bore in the entire country, producing 78,000 cubic liters of water per hour. What does that translate? It translates you need an investor, and the common mwananchi at the grassroots will be able to pay back the investor who has distributed the water, who has made sure that the quality of water is clean, and made sure that there is a drop of water at every homestead. Mr. Speaker, and the nominee, Alice Wahome, at the current situation of economics of scale in this country, does the common mwananchi be in position to procure some of these simple water agreement we are looking at? And I think you should be bold enough to advise the government on the best model. And if the model cannot work, will you be in a position to stand and tell the president, please, Mr. President, you promised the hustlers water, give them water without metering? Thank you.
Yes, Alice.
We could start from that question from Honorable Mule. I think I would encourage members that we don't operate from fears. You have very well articulated the fact that there will be the water scaling, the quality, the assurance, the terms of sale of that water, the costing, the tariffs. May I advise just at this stage that there will be no interface between the consumer, that is the beneficiary of the water, and the developer, because that is not possible. You can see that would not be an equal relationship. There are water providers that will be with the consumer, the mwananchi. The developer will be dealing with the government at government level and the development agency level. That is, for example, at the water, NIB or NIA now, at that level, the agreements will be exchanged, monies provided for, develop the water resource. Then the agency will be able to know, because we have water companies that even today, water is really actually a trading commodity. The water you are using in your house, even in this parliament, is for sale. We buy water. What is important is how how the instruments for control and regulation of tariffs is done. And if there are challenges there, it is an area that Parliament through delegated registration committee will be able to address. If tariffs are not reasonable, Parliament would have a role. And I think so far, I've looked at some of the studies and documentation with the ministry. Every shilling you invest in water brings 4 shillings, 4 times. Indeed, in our country, it could be up to 10 shillings. So I think there is room for control and standardization. And therefore, I can assure you, I think we have a role there. There is no need of fears. I do not see a situation where, and if you listen to the President himself, he said that the agreements will be first proposed by the relevant, by Treasury and then come to the Ministry, and I think it will obviously be a joint effort. We will look at those documents together. There will be public participation. The public will be able to say, even today, you know, they are able to be consulted, and there are bad practices. And unfortunately, actually, there is also a lot of theft. Chairman, there is a lot of theft of water. Some of the challenges is that non-revenue water, that is now about 40% of all the water that we develop and we have. So if we lose 40% to theft and leakages, that's some of the things that we are supposed to be doing so that we can increase our volumes or our water resource. Miriam Massey is talking about stored projects. I did say earlier there are many stored projects. There are several which are ongoing, complete and incomplete. And the ministry is working hard. I have looked at their portfolio, and I think they are working hard. The impediment is actually funding. And that's why if we wait to raise money from our revenue, you can be sure, like the Northern Corrector, Chairman, I found that the Northern Corrector, which is a major project for Nairobi water, it will be at the compression stage. It's now at 95%. It's supposed to give Nairobi 140 cubic meters of water. That project was supposed to have been completed in year 2000. We are developing it now. We are completing it now. What does that tell you? Already the population has gone up, and therefore we are still lagging behind. And that is the same story for the entire country. We are behind maybe by 20 years. So let's work together to deal with the problem. Do I plan 1 million acres from Nelson Koech? Will we revive some of the dams that possibly stored because of toxic politics? Some of the dams are actually in the Ministry of East Africa and Regional Development, like the Kimarwa is in that ministry. I know there could be some need for collaboration with that ministry, and I believe all cases will be evaluated. The dams that are stored, the ones that are having cases in court, all these issues are our problems. We will have to deal with them because we also don't want idle money or waste of money. And if politics messed up a project and now we are in court, possibly because of the delay, failure to meet the contractual or terms of agreement, then we need to review our situation and see whether we are able to pick our pieces and move forward, because we have to have water. I think I have done justice. Deliberate efforts of harvesting water. Miriam Massey, I believe I have tackled that question. If you could agree that we move. Mr. Chairman, I believe I have
Alice, I'll also
tackled.
ask you a question. Now, in areas that are not water scarce, like the Western region, parts of Central, and so on and so forth, the water is available, but there's a serious problem with one of your portfolios, and that is sanitation. There is a lot of drilling of public boreholes or springs. Many families in those areas use pit latrines.